Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Sunday, 3 December 2023. We meet today to talk about BTC, but not only that. We're also going to talk about altcoin because it's going to be really very important at the moment when we find ourselves on a BTC which has broken the $39,000 and which is slowly, tenderly attacking the $40,000. We are going to talk about a BTC at 42,000 and 51,000, which are my targets. We'll discuss it right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training course worth 400 euros, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. Basically, that was not the subject of this video this Sunday, but we have changed. We have evolved. We are adapting to what is happening. And that's also what's strong, that's what's interesting, is that we get surprised. We are surprised by a very strong acceleration in BTC with the breakdown of $39,000. $39,000, which basically we're supposed to hold here, in which we had a very strong level, which I mainly explained to you yesterday. We see that we have liquidated absolutely everything in a single candle. We see that we are in the process of reworking the upper parts, and we see that we have almost no liquidity which is formed around the 40,000. So this means that in fact there are fewer and fewer shorters who are positioning themselves, and we have achieved the 1-1 objective here. 39,700 pile oil, which was the objective given by this bullish impulse and this retracement that actually gives us this bullish impulse here. Okay? So for me, we have a first objective which is very strong and which allows us to really break the 39,000 which posed a problem, and in which we now have a new support to be able to work again. So the question we are going to ask ourselves is going to be, what are the next targets? The next targets I've already given you a little bit. You know them. The 1-1 here of 42,900 on the CME, which represents the bullish acceleration and the retracement that we had. So first impulse, retracement, lateralization, second acceleration, in objective 1-1 42,900, in which in addition we have the imbalance which is found here, therefore which is completely coherent, which is the imbalance which was created by the fall of Terra Luna, so a very, very important level. Second level, very, very important. It is the 1,618 of the extension here that we know. Okay, third wave to get the 1,618, the 51,500, in which we would therefore go recover all the liquidity that was left before Terra Luna. So all this zone of euphoria in which we said that we were holding the bottom and that we were in a super cycle, and therefore behind there is a lot of liquidity with a large part of imbalance, which is also here in a small time frame, especially in daily where we have quite a few areas which are interesting, so 51,500. So for me at the moment, the real rupture of 39,000 opens the way to this target of 43,000, which will be really a very important target. I always remind you that what is currently happening, the breakup that we had here with 32,000, was caused by the establishment of rumors around the validation of BlackRock, and that precisely right now, what is happening is what is pushing. This is pure speculation. We see it very, very clearly here. Open interest is stabilizing while we had an acceleration, and we had here a drop in open interest on Binance in particular, in which we had a part liquidation of the shorters who were in position. We have an increase in the funding rate. And especially when we look at the Kingfisher, we can see that the perpetual in the CVD is very aggressive and accelerating. And it is the previous top. And we see, although we is looking for the next one. So at the level of the CVD, only perpetual, almost big leverage, we see it clearly here at the level of the levers, and we see it clearly here at the liquidation level. Where generally here we have an increase in the number of levers and liquidation. So this implies that it is a movement which is purely speculative based on the perpetual. Is it bad? Clearly no. In all cases, we are in a magnificent upward flow that we are supporting. We have the chance to break the 39 potentially, to quickly get the 42,000, and precisely the goal is to go as high as possible so that if we are ever really in buy the rumor, sell the news, so that we have as weak a retracement as possible, and therefore behind as little liquidation as possible. For what? Because the interest behind it is also not to be frightening. If we have something that goes up to 51,000, 52,000 and goes down to 18,000, you can imagine that it's not necessarily going to go well in terms of news and in terms of regulations. There should be something that is much smoother. Yes, have a form of sell-off, But the higher you go, the more the sell-off will be controlled and controllable, and that is what will be important to check. There are two elements to take into consideration here. One, you don't have to be either white or black. You definitely have to be both, okay? We must not have a solely bullish or solely bearish bias. You must systematically have the vision of the coin, that there are two sides, in which there is a bullish side and a bearish side. There are two probabilities which play out systematically at every moment, and you must be prepared for the rest. If you follow the channel, you're starting to get really used to this speech, but it's really, really important. On the other hand, don't forget that we are banking on time. We are not betting on a price. We are not betting on news. We are betting on a temporality. The temporality of what, are you going to tell me? Well, quite simple. Validation of the ETF. Clearly, we know that it will be validated. The question of when is really very relative. This is why, for me, we will continue to push as long as there is no official validation of the ETF, and there, upon validation, we will have the answer if we really have a sell-off or not. Or if we have an addition of liquidity, an import of liquidity which really comes from the ETF, and which continues to push the BTC very high. Imagine that, moreover, in this scenario, if we were ever in a validation of the ETF in January, okay, so January 10th, before January 10th, that would imply that if we continue to push as we do there, we would be around $46,000, $48,000. And that if we would be somewhere around there, TAC 46, 48. And therefore that implies that in this period from the moment we have the news, we will have an influx of liquidity. Okay, if we have all the ETFs and an influx of liquidity, which is relatively substantial, this implies that if we look at the pure speculative part of the false rumor, agree that we had the false rumor, we have a candle which made more 10 minus 10 as soon as that was invalidated, but therefore that implies that we are even more than 10. It also implies that if we ever have the speculative part plus the addition of liquidity coming from the traditional market, we would go looking for very high targets quite quickly. I think we would easily go and get a 30 and go to retest the 60,000. Why? Because at the same time in the 60,000 we have a zone here of imbalance which is relatively strong, in which we are between 60 and 64, which will be very important. So there we will have important areas. So I repeat, 42,000, 52,000, and therefore 60-64, which are the three important zones. 60-64, obviously. There must be very strong news, and we must have precisely this liquidity contribution from ETFs. But initially, we will target 42,000, which is our first target. Also, it is imperative to accept the upward flow. We must not consider that we are in a form of FOMO, that we have missed the train, and that it is precisely the end. We're just going to move on to this one for better visibility. Because we have several reasons it is that already basic. It is not stated that we are already in bull run. As a reminder, in bull run, we are supposed to have candles like that regularly all the time. A bull run looks like that. We can clearly see the difference. We can clearly see the bullish impulse. So here we are no longer in a phase of preparation for this bull run, but it is rather positive. But we have a bullish flow, and precisely we do not need FOMO in these parts if we have prepared. We are already exposed. If you have just arrived on the market, you start to expose yourself. It's the same principle. It hasn't changed anything. And besides, if you want more information, you have my guide available, which brings together around 30 pages, which explains a little bit how to manage, how to buy, how to sell, when, etc. The different phases. And that's free. The link to access it is available in comments and descriptions if you're interested. But in all cases, it's important to understand that there is 1, it's never too late. That 2, it is possible to have retracements to be able to return. And that 3, in all cases we are talking about BTC, there are other assets which are present and in which we outperform BTC. I'm going to tell you a few of them. In particular, we're going to talk about Solana, in which here I'm doing Solana on BTC. And we can clearly see that we've had a big outperformance of Solana for a few weeks already compared to BTC, despite the acceleration of BTC. There are others that are underperforming, such as Ethereum. Ethereum is clearly underperforming compared to BTC, and it is not the only one. There are others that are working. As, for example, if I put the total 3 on BTC, we can clearly see that we are in an underperformance of altcoins compared to BTC, so that means that we will have opportunities which will arrive. And the best way to see it is not to necessarily base ourselves on in relation to the dollar, but to really base it in relation to the BTC. It is the representation of your altcoin that you want in relation to the one which sets the tone, and therefore the BTC. This does not mean that everyone will outperform BTC. But in any case, you will certainly find patterns that are very interesting with breakout zones, and this is where it can be interesting to prepare. For what? Because there we had a big acceleration in BTC. Okay, we retested, broke the 39, potentially the 40, or even potentially the 42. When we arrive in this zone of lethargy that we were able to experience here, in these two typologies of candles there, or this candle there, this is the zone in which we will certainly have altcoins which will take over and push, which will be the case with Ethereum. Okay, I admit that it's not super fun. We're really in a retest of the support, but we can't take off. We did a bearish retest, but we're not breaking bearish either. So we're rather in a zone of uncertainty. We accompany BTC, but we do not take the lead. On the other hand, we have altcoins. Once again, it is never too late. It is of no use. FOMO. Eyes closed. Look. Train, learn, and that's the basis. It's from there that you will be able to act on the market. And above all, don't let yourself be influenced, whether by me or by people in comments who tell you that the train has already left, that it is already too late. The goal is to encourage you to make impulsive purchases. Protect yourself. It's really the most important thing. And don't forget, your capital is essential and it will always be the case. Protect your capital. This is exactly how you will be able to invest if you no longer have capital and if you buy at the wrong time in the wrong way, without being aware of the risks. It could be fatal. So take the time to analyze. It's not too late. In any case, we have time. The bull run and the people who are supposed to arrive have not yet arrived. We really have time once again, even if we have great accelerations, even if we benefit from a great bullish flow. That nevertheless remains once again a bullish flow in which we have not yet passed the halving, in which we are still waiting for big news which will be the validation of ETFs, or we are waiting for U.S. regulations, or we wait for them. Elections. In the USA, you see, there are plenty of triggers that can be favorable or unfavorable for cryptos. And once again, you have to be patient. We were patient for all those who were there throughout the bear market in lateralization. You have to be patient in the support. So don't get excited, don't try to sell right away. Precisely, accompany this upward flow, and prepare if ever there are opportunities to seize them. And then if there are no opportunities, there are plenty of ways to find them. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy. And I wish you a very happy Sunday, and we'll see you tomorrow 7 for Everyday Life.